Well, hello, ladies and gentlemen. Today we have reached Coaching the Self podcast for another time. We are in episode 5 already, which is so exciting. I am beyond thrilled to be coming to you on a more regular basis now, and providing all these shorts and everything has really been a delight. And part of the reason we've been filming here is because our studio has been overtaken for constructions. So for the next 2 weeks or so, we're going to be in the studio. And hopefully when we get back to the studio, we're also going to have a guest on the podcast to discuss a variety of different things. We're going to do a little bit of a recap of everything that we've been talking about for the past couple podcasts. However, the topic for this week is called the difficulty of choice. As most people in first world countries will know, that we are blessed to have infinite amount of options. Now, these options are great. We haven't had this type of access to them for centuries, and before it was limited to kings and queens, and still not even to the degree. And we see this infinite option in pretty much every aspect of life, whether it's different careers you can go into, different online businesses, as something which, as someone who teaches this, it can be quite tricky, because usually you'll have all these different options, and even within those fields you have different options on what platforms to use. For example, if you wanted to start an online business, there's thousands of different choices of what kind of business it is, whether it's service or product based, and even with that, it's divided into thousands of different options with thousands of different websites like Shopify and Printify, and then for dropshipping you can use Alibaba, AliExpress. Anyways, you guys kind of get the point. Now, a big part of the difficulty of choice is that sometimes we have to take into consideration things as basic money to live. Now, as we stated in the previous podcast, when you're doing a job that you're least passionate about and it takes up many hours, as many jobs in the high tech do, which is also why they provide such high amenities in their workspace, is so that you don't feel the progression of time, and it's a homey. Now, the point of why it's so difficult, and also how it's even difficult with work, is because you'll finish work and you'll have all these options, but just choosing what it is to do is just exhausting, and you're already exhausted from giving so much of yourself to other people's and to different programs that are not by choice. Now, when you have all of these things together, combine, like you said, the infinite choice, you're putting yourself in a position where you can and most likely will fail. To say this applies to everyone is by far not true, and to say that it is a rule, if you fail one day you'll not be able to go, BS. Every day is a new day. We always have 24/7 of what we can do and choose to do. So I want to give you guys the tools to make these decisions. First of all, everything I'm saying now is something which I need to implement even more. That's also the title, and the purpose of this podcast is to really take the tools that I've learned and help implementing them, because just learning them is a third of the process. The third would be understanding what the problem is, then getting all the tools, and the last one is implementing them. And when you implement, it's the hardest one to do. Not only because of the infinite amount of choice, it's also the fear that we can do something wrong, that we can hurt ourselves, that we can kind of get into a point where there's no return. This that point right over there, which I just stated now, is bullshit. Excuse me for my language, but I was told something really beautiful. If you have something that's bothering you, but you can change it, why should it bother you? If you have something which you can't change, then why should you let it bother you? Now, these things, and I recommend you listen to that again, and you try as best as possible to find different areas of your life which you can use to remind yourself to practice not only this technique of cognitive behavioral therapy, CBT, but also more places where you can metaphysically release some of the issues which can disturb you. For example, I was learning one of these, I think one of the wisest books I've ever read or studied, which is called Lukutema Oran. I'm saying that with a hard and heavy English accent, but it's a book by the Rabbi Nahman, which is from Uman in Ukraine, and a lot of people go on a pilgrimage to visit him and his gravesite. I have a friend who's been there over 50 times, and they feel a certain connection. And this was one of the greatest rabbis, and what we learn from him is the ups. He would go on the highest ups, but he would also bring it down to the most simple. And that duality of being able to go to the highest and also being able to go back to the down, he was able to reach this balance of this equilibrium of knowing that he was just him. He was God's servant, and he was doing his work, and he was gifted with a lot of knowledge, and he was aware of that without a choice. And every time he felt his ego act up, it would bring it back down. Now, the purpose of this will be highly enhanced or highly developed in the later part of this podcast. Now, we're going to take what we were saying about the difficulty of choice, and we're going to take this key of finding the balance, and we're going to implement it. But first, we have to realize the extent of the difficulty of choice and all the different areas of your life which this comes to be. Now, we were talking about mainly work till now. I want to talk about relationships and dating, and even the dating apps which come with it. So, dating apps have a bit of a bad reputation. Of course, that they are by far the most widely used source for dating now in many parts of the world. And this is because we're in a time period where we're most isolated by people, meaning we're all in our rooms or in our apartments, and we do our own things, and it's become a very big notion of the self is time for the self. Now, for majority of human history, this was not the case. We were always social creatures. So a lot of the dating would occur from in the community. So there would be people that would push it, and also there would be some attraction. But as most of you know, marriage was a political concept and a diplomatic one at that, which goes as far back as King Solomon, even more. You can even say that it went back to the tribal days in Africa, which I'm sure there are a variety of good examples of this. Now, why do I bring up the dating apps first? Because the dating apps are literally the manifestation of the infinite amount of choice. Now, unfortunately, this is not true for everybody on those dating apps, because according to the statistic which I've done in studying this matter, it's around 20% of men who get 80% of likes from women. This leaves a big part of the people, you can say, left out in the cold. I'm grateful that I'm not one of those, not that I haven't been, but that I was able to overcome. And I think with age and development and the right design of your profile can really help increase your amount of success, likes. Now, success and likes are not the same, especially in this topic. What do I mean? Because you can get 1,000 likes, and I think I'm at 10,000 likes now, or almost 11,000 on Tinder. I would say maybe I've gone out with, I don't know, 20, 30, 40, no more than 100. I don't think it's close to that even. Why is this? And this has kind of been an issue in my dating life. Has been being overwhelmed, not only by all the different people and all the different texts and answering them, I have a friend who would go out with girls every single night, and it was basically a full-time job. He was lucky to have a remote job, so the majority of the time he'd be on his phone texting all these girls. That is way too much work, and something which feels a little inauthentic. However, it is a big part of our culture, is a multitude of dating. Now, I have found that when you go through a period of dating a lot, it can become very overwhelming quick, just like the matches can. Going on a couple of dates, one after another, of course, this is really an individual thing, but for me it becomes a little bit too much, because each interaction I like to give its full purpose and full dedication. Now, dating in person, which there's also that online option, which I think is it's actually a much more conservative, but I also think more successful, is because when we rush into a physical relationship, we can get to a point where we're developing feelings for someone based on the biological addiction to the other person's pheromones. This is something we all need to be wary of, and that's why I try to implement a 5 to 7 date rule with a serious candidate for marriage, which I highly recommend everyone do, to develop a relationship that's built on enjoying the other person's company, irregardless to sex. Because sex will only take you so far, and I believe it's one of the reasons why we have such high divorce rates. Lastly, in regards to dating, the best way and most effective way I found to start with women is, for me, it's a very tailor-made program. And I would say 90% of the time when I try to hit on women is at the beach. First off, I'll just ask them to watch my things. Hello, can you please watch my things? I'm going to go on for a swim. And when you come out, you can tell, based on the dynamic in the conversation, the majority of the time, if there's interest, if the dialogue continues, if there's questions or something like that. Women don't always make it super obvious, but you can tell sometimes. And when you have that beginning, questions. Questions are the key to developing strong relationships. If anyone has read How to Win Friends and Influence People, you'll see that listening is such a big part of it. And the reason it's such a big part of it is because you're helping the person feel seen. When I ask you questions about your life, about things going, and about the development and all this stuff, you're going to want to know, what is this about? What is the thing that you're going through? After you do that, people will feel a strong will to be a part of your presence, because they know that you care about them. You show that personalization. After you're able to, get to the numbers and to develop that kind of communication, I recommend starting immediately. If you wait too long, you will kind of be displacing from that person's memory. So don't do what I do, which is a lot of the times I won't text. Text right away, say it was lovely meeting you. I hope we can go out next week on Friday. Boom. You don't have to do more than that. Some women will hit or miss, but that would be the recommendation for me. It's really a base by base basis. That's why I don't want to go too much into the dating world, because who am I? I'm still single at 29, so I don't know if I can be the best judge of character, just as all those other people on YouTube and all their podcasts with all the different women that they talk about. I don't know if they've seen so much success for them to tell women how to behave. But that's here nor there. I apologize for drifting off topic. Now, finding the time is something which I've spoken about a little bit about last time, even though it was talking more about breaks and vacations and rewards. This is talking about a more crucial part, or equally so. It's the development of our personal life. In no way can we neglect that. Now, I understand if there's periods of time, this is something totally normal and we have to do. However, you have to set some sort of bar, whether it's going out with someone once a week, once a month. You have to set yourself some sort of goal, and you cannot drift below that goal. If you drift below that goal, you should add another goal onto it. For example, I was reading this book called Coding the Extraordinary Mind, and he says, I have to be able to do 50 push-ups a day. And if I reach below that, every day from then on, it would have to be 51. So getting to that point to either it's asking out women, going into dates, you have to build a baseline which you cannot drift from. And when you start going out with all these women and hitting on women, your confidence will rise. And I can tell you for a fact, confidence is sexy. Women love confidence. That's why you'll see men who have a variety of different body shapes, you can say, and other unflatterable features. And you can see them with the most beautiful lady. It's two keys: listening and confidence. When you have these two things, you're able to get many women. Again, not easy, and especially with our culture of high value men being on the big status, which everyone needs to do. We need to put ourselves in a position where we are the highest priority of taking care of ourselves. And this will help reduce the overstimulation that will come. Not to mention a detox of one day is something that is not only stated in the Bible, that's why we have Sundays or Saturdays off, but it is scientifically proven that when we detox from all these, I would say, overstimulated dopamine, such as the dating apps and all the positive reinforcement you can achieve from that, or Instagram or other social media platforms, the list of dopamine related activities which we can perceive to be of value, as time goes on, the more and more that we consume, and especially at the higher rate, we end up to a point that it starts to be much less pleasurable, in addition to the fact that we become more and more, you can say, depressed, because you're trying to get to that place, but you're coming from a place where you've depleted your energy over and over again. So that detox really helps to bring your appreciation up to it. Gratitude is another great way to keep the dopamine up. However, I recommend taking one day. My day is Friday night to Saturday, where I try to reduce my dopamine consumption in whatever way I can. Now, one of our companies, Can Do, has an idea to develop one of these apps. Unfortunately, we're not developing yet, since we have a variety of different products which are on a higher priority list. And we are really looking forward to getting to that point where we can build such an application which will help. Now, predisposition that we have is more and more and more. Why? Just like every single creature and even plant have a need for survival. That's why plants will grow towards light if they are in the shade. That's why animals will stick in packs, a lot of the time work together, or they will find the right ways to sustain themselves. Now, nature is a great way to see predisposition and to find the way which it affects us as humans. Now, I have been watching a documentary called The Game Changers last night, and in The Game Changers, they talk about all the success of different athletes from the eating a plant-based diet and how beneficial it can be. Again, because we have infinite choices, we'll get to a place where we have less and less choices. Now, as an artist, I have found that when we provide a certain restriction, we can have a more creative result. I think this speaks very highly about food. If you watch this documentary, the one that I mentioned, or you see a variety of others, you'll see that this is a unspoken benefit which comes from eating a plant-based diet. Now, I love meat, especially hamburgers. That's my treat. That's what I like. That and sushi. So I am definitely more on the carnivore side. However, because I have this personality of challenging myself to great degrees and meeting a lot of those challenges, this is something that is possible. However, I don't want to go full. I don't want to be a full integrated process of just eating plants and saying no to all meat, never eating a hamburger. These are the extreme. And when you have these extreme, we have to remember and go back to that topic I was talking about, the balance and the duality, which is unspoken in many different things. What do I mean? A key factor in similarity which I've seen in life is these two things. One, everything requires a certain balance. And second, there's always the good and the bad. Now, as someone who has a strong faith-based philosophy, I believe that everything we do, I don't believe there's such a thing as good or bad. Everything is, to some degree or another, as it's supposed to be. Now, you would say, how is this possible if there's freedom of choice? The freedom of choice is specifically for your decision on if you want to take this as a positive thing or a negative thing. But what can we learn from it? That we need to find the benefits and the negatives in both sides of it. And when we have that, we can start implementing small changes in order to create a more balanced resolution. What's something I want to state, and is very difficult, and something that I myself have been constantly struggling with, is what is the right degree of pushing yourself to the other side of it is giving up on yourself. This is where balance comes into key. And when you have these knowings of kind of where it is you want to fall, every time you go into a decision, you can ask yourself, where does this fall? Does this fall towards my extremes, or does it fall towards a more balanced response? And when you take that tool and you apply it to work or dating or hobbies or whatever you choose to do, you'll be able to utilize one of the strongest tools given to man, and that is our ability to think rationally, which isn't always the case. However, it is a crucial part of being human. And every time we look back at our issue, we can see that there is a point where we don't know. We don't know if we've reached the right place. We don't know if we've created such a horrendous mistake, which will come back and bite us in the ass. We can have feelings, but those feelings definitely don't lead us towards correct answers the majority of the time. Because when oh my god, I was forgetting this word, I apologize. When our emotion side of the brain, which is called the amygdala, gets to a point where it's overly stimulated, it can overrule and override our frontal cortex, which is where we make our decisions. We have to take this into account. And even though I learned it last week, and as soon as I learned that, still couldn't take control of it. So part of the ways we do this is writing down our issues, writing down our plans of attack, and then sharing that with somebody, because we might be able to inspire them, for them to make positive changes in their life. And that's the whole purpose of this and my journey. So thank you for coming to Coaching the Soul podcast, Coaching the Self, and help me help you. So please like and share and subscribe and all the best. And let me know what other type of content you'd like to see, both from me and for some of the fellow artists on our website, which is in the link below. So have a great week or day or night, wherever you are in the world. And just know, I love you. I really do. I don't know exactly who you are. I don't know if this is a parasocial relationship, but what I do know is that I just want the best for you and for humanity as a whole. So thank you for tuning in. You're truly doing something great, and I hope you have a great one.